Hey, what's going on, Archons? Welcome to an episode of KeyThoughts. I know I did not hit you last week with an episode. It's quite simple why I did not have anything meaningful to say, and I just didn't want to drivel on. I actually don't think I put out any videos last week. Doing some transitions in life with regards to occupational choices. Just had a schedule switch up was part of the reason why I didn't really do it. My mind was not on KeyForge last week, but this week we're here and we are hitting up a episode as per usual. So this week you'll notice I am not coming at you from my face taking up the entire screen. I decided to save you from having to look at me so intensely and bring up the topic through decks of KeyForge. And I think this is an interesting topic, and I hope you enjoy it. But before we get into that, let's go into the card of the week, which I am now realizing I did not load up. Actually, you know what? We'll do it this way because it's from here. So what I actually wanted to bring up was this card of the week is First or Last. And for those of you not familiar with this card, it's an action card from Dark Tidings in Sanctum, and it says choose one. You can purge each creature with the highest power or purge each creature with the lowest power. Very strong card. It is very strong because you are purging a creature. It will be gone and not come back. And it's interesting because it's basically standardized testing, but you get to choose which one's getting hit. And it can be extremely powerful in terms of the ability to take something off the board in many different ways. I mean, there's a lot of cards out there in Dark Tidings that supplement power counters, so you can influence things in that regard. And then there's also cards like Hadros Wall, which can also create an interesting situation where you take yourself out of the low zone. But First or Last is just a really nice utility card. You get things off the board. You also skip the destroy triggers. Kind of a big one, actually. Skipping destroy triggers with this is nice. That means anything with Ember on it, which is a thing that exists in spades these days, cannot be saved from the likes of Perfectus Ludo or anything like that. This card is just been putting in work in my games this past week. So we're rocking the First or Last. Now on to the topic. The topic this week is, you'll notice I'm in the sale page of Decks of KeyForge. And it kind of revolves around Decks of KeyForge to a degree. Actually, you know what? It entirely does evolve around Decks of KeyForge. And this isn't to say anything bad against Decks of KeyForge. This is just an observation, actually. And I don't think it's an incorrect observation. Let me rephrase that. I don't think what was done was incorrect within the scope of Decks of KeyForge. And what I'm bringing to the table today is I've noticed that Worlds Collide's decks may have, I don't know if saying the best cards in the game is the correct statement, but maybe the highest quality of cards in the game, and they were rated as such in Decks of KeyForge. And the reason I know that they're rated this way is because if you look at the highest SAS decks, they exist within Worlds Collide. So here we go. Look, I'm just going to go to on sale. Worlds Collide, Worlds Collide, Worlds Collide, and then we get into a couple Coda decks, and then Worlds Collide again, Worlds Collide. I'm going to be honest, I didn't set this up. I looked at the first two and I didn't scroll past that. So this is proving my point. More Worlds Collide, an AOA anomaly, Worlds Collide, Dark Tidings, Worlds Collide again, and then we get into Coda, Worlds Collide, Worlds Collide, Worlds Collide, Worlds Collide. So I feel like my point is pretty well made. There is Saurian in every single one, except for this one, which has Logos and Star Alliance. But you'll notice there's a trend. So those houses, Logos, Saurian, and Star Alliance, have the highest rated cards Wait, was I saying the wrong thing? Yeah, these aren't even Worlds Collide. Those are mass mutations. But yeah, here's Worlds Collide. There's just a lot of them, and honestly, for good reason. There are great cards that exist within this set. I mean, if you rank the cards individually and what they do, there are great ones. There's obviously houses within the set that are not going to be showing up on these because they do not have the cards that are highly rated. But it was just observing that they have these really well designed, really powerful cards that exist, and you can get some really incredible decks as a result. And I just thought about that, and I think that's really interesting. And I know people, I've had conversations with people actually that specifically do not gravitate to Worlds Collide decks almost for this reason, because they have such strong cards, and the decks actually play quite straightforward a lot of the times. Like the complexity of lines are not as strong. Strong, is that the right word? The complexity of lines are not as abundant, and the ability to do some wild stuff outside the box does not exist the same way. In fact, I think SAS actually operates where the more straightforward a deck is and has high rated cards, the higher the score will be. The more nuanced a deck is in terms of you need to do more setup, or it's not as obvious some of the cool combos that can be done, they will not get rated as highly, even though they can play at a very high level. And that's fine. That's just the way it is. It's an observation. It's not anything wrong with it. It just makes sense if you're going to build a system that rates and does the synergies. There's a degree of, you can't go past this point in terms of trying to make things work and properly rate multi-card combos, etc. There's also the fact that they were telling me they just don't want to play, especially Logos. Worlds Collide was the big one that they don't want to play, and Saurians, those two, because they're very straightforward. I mean, you just play the cards and they're gonna do things. Like Saurians have maybe a little more thought into it. Star Alliance is the one that I think is the most interesting because of the house cheating factor, so you can really figure out ways to get really intense with your abusing. So I think that's really interesting. And then you look at Dark Tidings and Mass Mutation. There are much more complex lines of play available there for various different reasons. The possibility of enhancements as well, changing the composition of the way something would play normally. So I just think it's really interesting that Worlds Collide is kind of like, if you want to get high SAS decks, buy Worlds Collide straight up. Oh, and here comes a shameless plug. You can get them for $50 a display for me. I believe it's right now the deal is 4 displays for 200 shipped within Canada and the US. So if you're looking for high SAS decks, this is where they exist. You're going to find these the most. I mean, even in my own decks, my highest rated decks are in Worlds Collide. It's just the way it is. It's the way the cookie crumbles. The way the set was designed. And I mean, as a follow-up to Age of Ascension, I think it kind of makes sense from marketing. I don't know if that's the right word to use for this, but yeah, it's kind of interesting, and there's nothing wrong with it. There's a lot of really fun Worlds Collide decks, but for me personally, I fall into the Mass Mutations Dark Tidings level of play. I do enjoy that extra layer of analysis and complexity in decisions, and as you play a deck more interesting things will come out, where I think within the Worlds Collide realm, you're going to figure out the way a deck plays sooner and be able to do it more proficiently faster. So that's it for this week's episode. Hope you enjoyed, and as always, folks, may your ember never be stolen and your keys forged promptly. Have a good one.